YouTube Live. At the end of March. What is this? March the 26th?
7th.
This is the 27th?
Mhm.
I've been wrong all day.
Mm-hmm.
But we have Mr. Adam Cloninger with us for the month in review of March. And Mr. Neil gets to come out of the curtains. Mr. Neil Robinson is hanging out
Out of
with
the
us.
curtains, better than out of the closet. So that's good.
This is true. Out of the curtain. I've said that before.
I mean, do you want to come out of the closet? I mean,
No.
just,
I mean, we could do that right now. We're an international podcast.
No, we're good.
You good?
You go first, Chris, and then I'll follow.
I'll go first.
After you, Chris.
So this is the section of the show before we turn the mics on that you'll find in Apple Podcasts and Spotify and whatnot. The YouTube Live is a great way to interact with us. We come on live on Thursdays about 6:15 or so. So if you're finding us for the first time, tell all your friends, subscribe, click on the button, and that will help us out. And we'll do all the other intro stuff, I guess, later as Neil types the things that he needs to type and does the things he needs to do. Adam, how are you?
Good, other than I can't find my truck keys.
We were just talking about this.
Yeah, other than that,
Even
I'm good.
looked down the dryer lint.
No, the
You
vent.
did not look down the dryer lint.
I don't know how it could get in there because there's a, and it can't get to there. There's no way it could get in there.
I think the way more interesting off-the-cuff topic that we were talking about is your lawnmower. The legendary lawnmower. For longtime listeners, you will remember Neil and I giving him horrible trouble for his detailed persuasion. Is that a good way to put it?
Sure.
The detailed persuasion of having to redo. We wouldn't mention OCD at all. Wait a minute. Oops.
You did. You just didn't.
That was by purpose. Anyway, it wasn't by mistake. You got a new lawn deck. Congratulations.
Yes.
Lawn mower deck, I guess I should say.
Just
Not
got
a
to
lawn
level it
deck.
out and get it adjusted, and I'll be good. Go.
Are you done typing?
Yeah, I'm done.
All right, save me. Get me out of here.
All right. You ready to start, Chris?
Yes.
All right. 3, 2, 1.
Hello, this is Through a Therapist's Eyes. I am Chris Gazdick, your host, and this is the month in review of March already. I can't believe we're moving into spring, but we did some cool shows in March, and the last week of the month, we do a review of the shows that we did. So we have Mr. Adam Cloninger come and hang out with us,
Hello.
and Mr. Neil Robinson gets to come on out of the closet or curtain.
Whatever.
Sorry, you brought it back up. This is where you get insights from usually a panel of therapists in your home or your car, but knowing it's not the delivery of therapy services in any way. We have non-clinicians review the shows with us. It's kind of fun on the month in review shows. But this is March the 27th, I'm told, not the 26th that I thought all day. And we do ask you, look, we provide free content to help provide information about mental health and substance abuse and blow up stereotypes and myths. And if you like our show and you like what we do, we're a little bit entertaining and we give you some decent information, then please tell somebody about it. YouTube Live, subscribe to the YouTube Live, helps us out. Ask a friend to join, click the bell, do the notifications. John's not here, but he always gets upset about 4 stars. You got to have 5 stars. He's funny with that. Contact at throughatherapisteyes.com is the way to interact with us. And then this is the human emotional experience, which we do endeavor to figure out together. A little special note to Reed Ferguson. Thank you for the intro music. He created that for us, and you can look him up on all show notes. We give a link to him. You can find him easily. He'll come sing for you live at your party, show, bar, restaurant, business, bank, company, anything else?
Company function.
Company functions?
Bar mitzvah?
Bar mitzvahs?
Maybe?
I started to say that, but
I don't know if he knows any bar mitzvah songs. Are there specific songs for bar mitzvahs?
You can probably change some stuff.
All right.
You
Well,
say-
he'll come to your birthday.
you
and
said
sing for
cookout,
you.
right?
Do what?
You said cookout. You said barbecue, didn't you?
Cookout, yes.
Fundraisers?
Fundraisers. He'll come to your fundraiser also. Very good. Man, we have a good
family fun day.
list. Family reunions.
Yep.
Reed will come sing for you.
Funerals.
Okay. Ooh. Ooh. Celebrations of life. I mean, we do that. All right. Where are we going? We do a fun thing on the month in review. Adam brings us a rabbit hole. So we go down the rabbit hole with Adam Cloninger. What's the rabbit hole?
Tried to find something a little better than last month.
Last week.
so-
What was last week? That was,
last month,
was,
you hated the new fear of flying that I unlocked about the people who had to was it 8 hours on a plane with the
With the dead person.
It was disturbing.
yeah, it was disturbing. So I got 2 articles this time, both of them about hope. So I think that'll make matter.
Oh, now you went the opposite direction. You create hope.
Yeah, I'm trying to fix so. The first one was a family, or actually a couple. They had a Datsun with them on a camping trip is in South Australian island, Kangaroo Island. Not familiar with it, but
Kangaroo Island.
yep. So they had their Datsun with them, and the Datsun was in the kennel, and the Datsun escaped.
Oh,
So they spent 7 days trying to find a Datsun. So 16 months later, now the local news has been reporting about a black Datsun spotted on the island, and now they've seen some video footage, and they're convinced it is their dog.
are there like literally kangaroos on this island?
I don't know. I mean, apparently people live on this island because it said the locals have tried to approach the Datsun, and it has nothing, and it takes
It won't
off.
have anything to do
Yeah,
with
they cannot capture it, but now the owners are convinced that their Datsun that they've lost 16 months ago is on the island and is still alive.
I mean, it's possible.
Yeah. So, good hope.
That is cool hope.
That's the first one.
Okay, because I was going to say, what am I supposed to comment on mental health? Neil, how are we supposed to mental health this? Because
The anguish of losing a loved one with the renewed hope of actually having it back.
can we call a pet a loved one? I mean,
Yes.
we can.
Yes.
Why
It's
wouldn't
a loved,
you?
well, because a loved one is a person. It's a human. I've never heard of a dog.
Why would a one
referred to
not be
as-
a pet?
You don't consider a pet part of your family?
I mean, yeah.
What's wrong with you, man?
I do, man. Don't send hate mail
Hate
to
mail.
me. I just thought that refers to people. A
Just
loved
get rid
one.
of your dogs and see what
I've never-
happens. Come on,
I've never.
Chris.
Hey, my dogs love
Loved
me.
one. Exactly. Are they not your loved ones?
Yeah, I don't like this
Wait a minute.
conversation.
Do you ever take
anymore.
them? Do you ever take them to the vet?
I mean, I don't know.
So when I go to the vet, I mean, his name is Marvin, and my last
name, right?
Yes.
well, that's true. Yes, it's Fletcher Gary Gastic.
Yeah. Say
Sadie.
they are your family.
Yeah.
And wouldn't you rather spend time with your dogs than your kids sometimes?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, see, exactly. Pets are definitely a loved one.
And they have your same last name, so they're your adopted kids.
Okay, let's move on.
Okay. So the next one, a guy in Michigan recently, he spent $100 on a pick 3. He picked the number 666.
Oh, jeez.
Wait, it gets better. It gets better. He won $500.
Of course he won.
So how you feel about that, Chris?
It is a very significant number that supports or represents the evil one.
But it gets better.
Okay.
So he took 100 of the 500 he won and put it on a fast cash. Guess what happened? He won $2.39 million.
Are you serious?
Yep.
That is crazy.
Yep. So anyway, hope.
Off of the number 666?
No, he used the number 666 on a pick 3,
Right.
and he won.
Money.
He won $500.
But that's money's tainted.
Well, then he took $400, put in his pocket, spent another $100 on
And won $1 million.
on the fast cash,
Multi.
and won $2.39 million.
Okay. Well, I guess that could definitely generate hope. I don't know. I'm going towards the devil talk and the devil numbers.
That's the
stuff.
part that bothers you.
Yeah.
If I would have left the 666 part,
Yeah.
okay.
Why would you play the lottery on 666? Like, no, I don't.
I mean, they didn't say what the other one. He might have picked 444 and 555 and 6. I don't know.
You run 333 just to counteract it?
I mean, that's what I'm going to play. I'll play 333.
He might
You know
have
what
played
333
666 and 777, and well.
Here is a true story, Neil. Okay, so I have this golf course that I would walk across to go to a swimming pool growing up. We lived in a resort, like in a it was called Ogilvy Park at the time. Now they call it a resort, but it was just a golf course. It had a zoo. It was a great little place to grow up. But I was at the pool, and I'm coming across the golf course, which is a long walk for a kid. So it's probably a half-hour walk, and I find not one golf ball with the number 3 on it, but I find a second golf ball with a number 3, and then a third golf ball with a number 3. And I went home and I asked my mom, this is just crazy. Like, why do I have this experience? And obviously the number is 333. And we looked it up, and it does stand for perfect holiness. I felt weird about that. I don't know what it means. Probably didn't mean anything, but I don't know, man.
It means you had a really pissed off golfer that lost 3 of his nice golf balls.
It means there's a mad golfer somewhere.
Pretty sure there were 3 different golfers. That would be scary if it was the same golfer that put those balls in that spots that I found.
Well, I mean, some golfers are pretty consistently bad, so you might.
This is true. And I wasn't looking for balls, honestly. So it's kind of in the fairway.
Numbers are such.
Were they close to
thing.
each other or not?
No, they were not. This was just walking a half hour to an hour. Well, it couldn't have been an hour. I don't know. I was a small kid, but it was a long walk for me, and it was over a golf course. Like, I don't know, 2 different holes, so 2 different fairways and pine trees and whatever. But I wasn't looking for balls. I was going home, and I found 3 of them.
So forgive my ignorance. What's the numbers on a golf ball for?
They when you're golfing, you it's a way to identify your ball.
That's all it is?
brand,
Right,
yeah,
you would do whatever you put onto it, so it's your identifier.
Yeah.
So that way, if you're golfing with buddies, you know which ones are yours versus someone else's.
I have a Titleist 4. You have a Titleist 7.
Well,
Okay.
what if you
Pinnacle.
both have Titleist 3s? Then you would draw something on there.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of things. My father-in-law would draw like a kanji symbol. He spent a bunch of time in Japan. He writes something specifically on there.
Yeah, I think that's funny. Guys that'll
So-
write on their balls.
Yeah,
So-
they do.
So it could have been something as simple as he just dropped his balls and
No, it was 3 different spots for sure. I mean, it was weird that I found 3 balls at all. It's weird that I found any golf balls.
maybe you were supposed to play to pick 3 and pick 333.
It's better than 666. That's what I'm saying.
I don't know. 2.3 million. Then actually 2.39 million plus another $400 says you're wrong.
Neil, what were you going to say? Numbers are weird.
No, numbers are just an interesting thing when you look at the things behind them.
Numerology.
Yeah, that's an interesting study when you look at a lot of those things. So that could be a topic. Bring a numerology.
Well, maybe
expert
that's
in.
the topic of this rabbit hole that we've definitely gone down because, I mean, I was born on 2/25/25 and I turned 52. Yeah.
Interesting.
Do the math. 2/25/25, that was my birthday, and I turned 52 years old. Those numbers add up to 52. Like, I think this is going to be a good year. But if I play the lottery, I'm not playing 666, Neil. I'm playing 333.
So do you like Jim Carrey's movie?
Which is,
Is it 23? What is it?
I don't know what that
The
is.
number 23, I think it's called. Have you not seen that?
I don't think I've seen that one.
Oh, you got to watch that.
Got nothing.
Oh, yeah.
I don't really like Jim Carrey, though.
It's not a comedy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's not a comedy.
Jim Carrey in a
It's
non-comedy?
not a comedy.
He's had a couple.
Yeah.
They're different.
He's actually a good actor.
That sounds like Adam Sandler. Is he a good actor? That's debatable. All right, let's get into the March month in review from the episode 302. I don't know. I'm going to let you, Neil, take this so I don't go off on a rant with the alcohol use disorder, misleading diagnosis, alcohol use disorder. The 3 questions we posed was, have I ever assumed someone's drinking habits were problematic without understanding their full context? How can misdiagnosis of alcohol use disorder impact treatment and a person's self-perception? And then lastly, what are the key differences between casual alcohol use, problematic drinking, and alcohol use disorder? Those were the questions. What do you recall, Neil? Because I don't want to just rant.
Well, you don't want to rant about them watering down the term alcohol abuse disorder or alcohol use disorder versus like alcohol addiction or something like that.
I mean, I'm going to, but I
Yeah.
just wanted to temper it for at least a moment.
Well, see, that was an interesting conversation because when you're going through when I was listening to you and John talk about it, like it just sounded like alcohol addiction. But then as you start diving into things, it's like they're trying to not make it the same, which was kind of weird.
Yeah.
It was a very weird thing, and I know we've had discussions about addiction versus abuse, right?
Right.
Alcohol, which is really I'm still confused by, but that's okay. So
Yeah.
it's kind of one of those interesting things when you look at, how did they tell you as a therapist to handle someone using alcohol use disorder versus just an alcohol addiction? Like, is there really a difference between the two?
It's just frustrating because the titling and verbology that's used was changed in our more recent versions of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. So we used to have alcohol abuse as a complete own ICD-9 coded diagnosis, and then alcohol dependence as its own separate ICD-9 coded diagnosis. And the thing of it is they combined them and just said, we're going to just say this is alcohol use disorder. So they're not distinguishing between people that have alcoholism, addiction, we said chemical dependency, and they just lumped in people that are, abusing the substance so that, they might get a DUI and continue drinking and whatnot, but it's not addiction. So they just lumped it all in together, and it really, really misrepresents what addiction is. I mean, yeah, we've had the conversation. I like to say you put professionals in a room together, you simply pose the question, what is addiction? And just look at the fireworks fly. Because there's so much discussion and so much curiosity about it, and so much not good information. So it's almost like we've done research and studied the brain, and they're sort of trying to claim different claims about the substance abuse addiction field that I just don't support, because I'm a traditionalist. Insofar as we know, abstinence-based treatment for addiction is all that's possible, because addicted folks cannot control their use. And that is just very different than, self-medicating is a big phrase, or coping with your emotions through drinking, or being impulsive with a driving situation. I mean, those things may be a part of addiction, but this diagnosis, alcohol use disorder, makes it sound like it's all one big thing, and it's just dramatically different. Right? It's totally different. And clinicians, I think, that don't study the history of the chemical dependency field, like substance abuse therapists, then it's just so misleading. So that's my problem with it in a nutshell.
That clarifies some things based on the conversation from before and here. I mean, because if you're looking at it from, say, physical therapy or something like that, someone who has like, my foot hurts, right? Well, why did your foot hurt? Well, is it because you broke your leg, or did you break your foot? Did you sprain something? It's the same basic idea, right? You treat a broken foot different than like an ankle sprain, right?
Yeah.
Because you would put a cast on a broken foot, but an ankle sprain, you might just get a brace, right? Or just some other stuff, right? So the idea of treating two different things, they look very similar, but when you think about the foundation behind it, right? The addiction side of it, the alcoholism versus just not being able to cope or deal with it, it really changes the whole dynamic. And when you try to lump it together, it changes the whole dynamic, right? Because you're not properly looking at, this needs to be treated this way, like you said with the chemical dependency. So like I said, the same kind of idea. My foot hurts. That
is a really, really good metaphor.
You have a broken.
Honestly.
You have a hurt foot disorder.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
he's taking you to the seminar with him. To help
Seriously,
him make the
I am
argument.
so going to use that as a metaphor when I talk about this, because if you sprain your ankle, your foot hurts. But if you break your ankle, yeah, your foot also hurts. We can't say this is a foot hurt disorder. That's just stupid. It's just stupid. Yeah, I love that. I love that a lot. But we've done that. I don't know how brilliant people came up with that, but that's what we did with this thing.
Well, and I mean, it's kind of like some of the like ADD like the spectrum of ADD versus ADHD, the autism and Asperger's. Like they're taking all these things and trying to lump them into these big spectrums,
right?
Instead of saying, here's one piece that's like this piece is different because of these characteristics. They're trying to put them all together to either lessen the worst cases or to try to make it, because then we talked about that too, watering down the terms, right? Watered down, like, an alcoholic is, alcoholic, you have alcohol use disorder, make you feel better about that, right?
Yeah, there's a little bit of that going on, but and you're right. I mean, Asperger's and autism, is another really good example of that. Although
there's other reasons behind those two, right?
But they're very similar. They're actually a whole lot more similar. I think there's a stark difference between a sprained ankle and a broken ankle. Asperger's and autism, I don't know, it's almost like a sprained ligament in the ankle as opposed to a sprained muscle in the ankle. You know what I mean? I mean, to stay with that metaphor, they're pretty close, and you can lump them together a whole lot better, because I do believe in continuums, and the field did move towards thinking about depression on a continuum, light, moderate, severe, bipolar, light, bipolar, moderate, severe, hypomanic versus manic. There's continuums for things and all, but you got to be careful. You can't put everything in a continuum, particularly when they're different things.
Well, you need a very clear guidelines. Like if your continuum is over in this section, there's this course, right? You still have to look at certain criteria in that continuum, right? You can't just say, oh, you're an alcohol use disorder continuum and you treat everyone the same, right?
Yeah, and that's a big thing that you raised too. You know, what do you do with alcohol abuse? You really do treat that differently than alcohol dependence in the older way that we used to refer to the diagnoses. You really need abstinent-based treatment for people that have addiction. We have not been able to do a return to drinking very well at all on any kind of programs that have engaged that. In fact, it's pretty well just not really done anymore quite so much. We used to have 12-step programs that would advocate for that, not AA and whatnot. Alcohol abuse, yeah, you got to deal with your emotions. You got to manage what you're stressed out about. You got to, but you definitely don't have to like never drink again. There's a very different approach.
Well, one of the questions when I, looking at it from outside, if you have problems with the alcohol abuse because you're not dealing with your emotions like that, shouldn't you still abstain from alcohol?
I mean, for a period of time, it probably would be helpful. It would be, I've done that with people for sure. Let's take the negative coping away, but you do that with eating too. You're looking at, the difference is you're looking at just behavior versus with addiction, you're looking at a genetic biological reality. That's kind of the way I believe and see. And so, yeah, there's lots of ways to manage your behavior and all, but I don't know, Adam. What do you think?
I just want to say I haven't had any alcohol since last week.
Okay, good.
Just so everybody know.
You're sober for a week?
Well, I'll have a couple beers here, then I'm good for a few days. I don't.
We'll do an alcohol assessment. That'd be a fun, real show.
Alcohol assessment?
Alcohol and drug assessment.
How's your
about
Lent
that?
going, Chris?
Huh?
How's your Lent going?
Lent is going fine. Ugh.
Just asking.
He's referring to my commitment to not drink alcohol for Lent. I am engaged in that. My body's probably happier. I could say that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Still going strong.
After the
For-
first day.
Couple more days.
After the
I don't know
first day.
How much longer do we got to go? I don't know. We got 2 weeks.
How's
3
your
weeks,
morning
couple-
coffee?
Morning coffee's fine. Nothing wrong with the morning coffee.
Ask him about Lent on his first day of Lent.
What happened
First
on the first day of
are we
Lent?
compulsively looking at what specific day we start? Does it have to?
Does it really matter if I start a day late?
All right, I'm done with this conversation. Also,
Well, I haven't had anything in like 6.5 years, so I
right.
once again no sympathy here. Oh no, you can't drink for 40 days.
I had a bonfire, Neil.
Good for you.
Not cool.
You still-
Also,
you still
baseball
should've-
started today. This is the first day of baseball. Happy MLB Day for everybody, by the way.
Go buy some O'Douls. You'll be fine.
That's not even. Ugh. Drink some unsweet tea and instead.
Who drinks beer for flavor?
I do.
Oh,
Well, I used to.
absolutely. Are you
Beer
kidding
tastes
me?
good. Yeah.
Yes, man. All the micro. You know what beer I drink, for crying out loud. You tell me that stuff's not flavorful?
No, that's not what I'm saying at all.
What are you saying?
I'm saying if you went to the store and you had two drinks and you know both of them taste the same and this one has alcohol and this one doesn't, you're like, well, I'm taking this one because it's got alcohol in it.
Actually, I would pick the non-alcohol one.
But Chris would pick the one with alcohol, unless it's Lent. Then he would.
Then he would still pick it, but that's a whole other
Then
thing.
he would just.
I don't know. No, I think I would get both. It depends on what I want to do for that particular day. All right. Speaking of alcohol, we didn't really get to talk about the assessments. They were quick and dirty. The article was pretty cool. And I thought these are 5 pretty clean, pretty quick things to think about. Like, are these things that in combination, not any one of them, by the way, are they an issue? Because that gives you want to really start looking at your relationship with alcohol. So alcohol is the only reason you look forward to social interactions. It dominates or predominates. Like, that's why I want to get together. 2, people in your life comment on your drinking. Like, there's a question or some, not giving you a hard time or just busting your chops, but really like out of concern. Like, Adam, I'm really concerned, why you just lied about your alcohol intake. We need to talk about that after
Or
the
man,
show.
you okay? You were tore up last night.
Right. Well, yeah. 3, you start thinking your friends are boring for not drinking like you. That's a weird sort of turnaround thought. I thought that was interesting in the article.
Unless they're boring.
Unless they're actually
unless they're
boring
boring, they're not
people.
drinking.
So boring like Neil. 4, you're constantly making excuses to normalize your drinking. Excuses is a big indicator. And then 5, you keep trying to quit drinking, but it just you end up drinking again. That's a pretty strong indicator. So in combination, these 5 things are pretty.
Sounds like things you would have if you have a alcohol addiction, not an
Right.
alcohol use disorder.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for that. I like the direction of this. We're making progress. We also didn't get to talk about motivational interviewing, and I thought that was interesting. So, as a way for therapists that might be listening to the show, it's a therapy modality that I use a lot of times when I'm working with addicted individuals, and I'm doing a presentation. And I'm going to add this into my presentation when I'm talking to therapists because this is kind of an advanced skill in motivational interviewing. First of all, motivational interviewing is a theory where you look at like the stages that people are in and their process in getting active into recovery. So you end up in a pre-contemplative stage where you're just outside of the circle and you're not really contemplating a change or an interest or an issue. You're not really looking at these questions and being honest with yourself. Contemplative stage is when you see some of these questions might have some answers that give me concern, but I'm not really sure that I want to go do sobriety. I definitely don't want to do sobriety, so I don't know that I want to be active in treatment, whatever. And so you'll move from contemplative stage to an active stage where I need to start talking about this and dealing with it. And so you actively move into treatment, recovery, sobriety, 12-step, whatever it might be. And then last, you might move into a relapse where you kind of fall out and then you have to go back into, the cycle of things. So that's motivational interviewing. But an advanced skill that's kind of cool is sustained reflective listening with complex reflections. And I thought it was cool the way they put that. And then I realized, I do this all the time.
Did you say complex?
Yep.
Okay.
Sustained reflective listening with complex reflections. Yeah, I think I missed the word a little bit. And, we talk about reflective listening all the time. Neil, so I heard you say da-da-da, and you clarify what they said in session, repeating it, reflecting it back, and then they respond, and you kind of go on with more thoughts about the topic. That's like a basic skill that we all do. I mean, therapists do that almost just naturally. We don't even think about it. But when you look at sustained reflective listening, you're really staying with the theme that the person's bringing. You reflect that back, but then you have complex reflections where you're actually kind of interpreting that concept or thought a little further than what that person is actually thinking. So the danger is you're making a suggestion. And therapists get really weird about I don't want to put anything out here that isn't what they're bringing. So there's concern. So you have to be really careful about doing that. But when you get into this complex, reflective tendency, I find that that's where you really figure things out with people. So, therapists listening, that's an advanced skill. And I'm going to talk about it in my day presentation. But
are you sometimes just kind of spitballing maybe it's this when you're
100%.
Okay.
Yeah, spitballing probably isn't exactly the right term there. I like to say educated guess. As a matter of fact, I'll say in session with you, Adam, I'll be like, listen, I'm going to make an educated guess, but what I hear maybe might be behind that is you're kind of thinking about your question, but your question actually might have a doubt because I remember you've said that you had doubts about this thought before.
Right.
So I wonder how much that doubt that you have and trusting other people or their thoughts plays into this. That adds a lot of flavor to you asking the question or making the statement. Go ahead.
So, in listening to you talk just in general, a couple of things I've kind of looked at from listening to how the therapist talk in this thing.
When we get into therapy talk.
Shouldn't a therapist make suggestions or give their feedback to what the person's doing? And you just said therapists don't like to do that. But if I'm coming to a therapist and I'm having them listen to me, I don't expect it to be first session. Oh, by the way, here's your problem. But as you build a relationship, if my therapist isn't giving me feedback to help me process it, that's a crappy therapist. I'm sorry, but And so that's an interesting, because we've talked about that before. Like sometimes you don't like giving formal treatment plans or certain things like this, and there's certain things you have to let your client work through. But if I'm coming to you as a client and I need to figure out things out, like to me as a therapist, if you're not giving, hey, based on my professional experience and what you're saying and looking at your body and saying and giving them some sort of a feedback, I don't know. I just feel like there's this weird area in therapy right now that they're so worried about hurting their patients' feelings that they're not actually really
scared to
helping.
say something out of the way. Yeah, I can
so-
see that.
I don't know that it's a fear of hurting their feelings, but
Or getting
I-
sued or something.
maybe some liability for sure. You don't want to do any damage. I think the thing is, there's a lot of fear about labeling or certainly mislabeling. It's about like I need to process with you rather than be directive and tell you something. But I think there's interpretation is a different word. I'm not gonna tell you what is going on in your head when I'm just looking at symptoms and figuring out with you what those match up with and what might be. But I am going to interpret a lot. So it really comes with experience. But I couldn't agree, Neil, more. I mean, I think people are afraid to interpret, wildly interpret. And sometimes you have to, because the person literally just doesn't see things that are really overt and right in front of you.
And I think that's really powerful, because when you have those conversations and the therapist kind of comes out of left field being like, I think it might be, or based on what I'm seeing, I think it's this, because then you, from your perspective, you hear it, and sometimes you get that weird like smack in the face being like, oh wait, maybe that is what I meant to, and then they start like you said, it processes it, right?
Well, those are sometimes, honestly, when I've gotten more of the aha moments and stuff that do happen. It's an aha moment when I actually hit one, and when you get to seeing patterns with different diagnoses.
You hit your clients?
I did not hit the client.
Aha! Aha!
Yeah.
Aha!
Get it in your brain.
Just stop it! I definitely want to sometimes.
No, I would think that he's got to kind of go based on what the client's doing, and what I mean is he's probably having these suggestions in his head. Now, whether he says them or not is probably going based on if the client is just saying something. He's probably going to sit back and wait. But if they're giving some kind of indication, and correct me if I'm wrong, if they give some kind of indication, they're wanting some kind of, feedback or some kind. If they like kind of stop and like looking at you, you're probably going to be more likely to say what you were thinking than if they're just talking the whole time, because you're thinking maybe they haven't got to the point yet. But I'll make notes and I'll talk about it in a few minutes.
Yeah, I mean the flow of an individual session. I love this. It's kind of fun for me. It's like talking shop in a way that yeah. I mean, in the flow. I mean, you got to realize this is a relationship. It's a therapy relationship, and the relationship. No, we're not hitting. People. It's not a domestically violent therapy relationship, Neil.
Would it be professionally violent, not domestically?
I mean, we could play with that. That might be an interesting strategy that we'd have to do some evidence-based research to see the efficacy of
rage
said
therapy
practice. Like I said, I guess I could use the psychobabble words. No, but seriously, it's a relationship. You're engaging with it. You're understanding each other. And when you're interacting, sometimes people just need to come in and just vent. Adam, you're 100% right. But when they give indicators like we all do during conversations, it's kind of like, well, yeah, I'm gonna fill that space.
And I can see that being super valuable for people who just don't really understand the power that alcohol has in their life. And when you start,
with addiction, it's very important.
When you start discussing and you start seeing it from different sides, like that can be super powerful when it comes to some of those things sometimes.
As a matter of fact, you're making me think there's it's not my style. I've worked with people that have this same kind of style, and it's just like, it almost makes me uncomfortable. But there's in traditional substance abuse therapy, it occurs to me that's a part of this conversation. Talk about being directive. Oh my God, people will get in people's faces and stuff. Like, you have to break the person down and attack the denial and, go at them and all. And I'm like, I had this one experience, where I was a co-leader with this woman who was much my elder, and we had like one dude in the group at the time. It was a new group. We were starting it, and he was a young fella, young black dude. She was an older, middle-aged white lady, and I was like green, knowing nothing out of school. her eyes bugged out of her head. She got out of her chair. She went over to the guy and started like basically street talking with him. Just like to confront the crap out of him. I was like, oh my God. I just sat there like, what are you doing, man? Like, you can't. It's not. And it worked. Actually, I must give credit. I mean, he appreciated and got something out of it, and coupled with a lot more complicated, more gentler, I guess you'd say, interactions. But it was like, so yeah, therapists can get pretty directive when need be. All right, episode 303. We talked about the dangers of numbing out, survival mode. I don't understand why I was destroyed for using the word numbing out. What happened there, Neil?
Adam, have you heard the term numbing out?
I mean, I think I kind of mean what he's referring to. Are you talking about like a lot of things happen to you after a while? You're like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm just kind of tuned out from all the stuff. Is that what you're talking about?
Feelings are numbed out. I don't feel them.
So did y'all give him a hard time or something? Or?
Victoria.
Yeah, it's not bad, right? It's not
Victoria
bad.
as the young millennial, and I say that because somehow I'm lumped in with millennials, and don't ask my wife that 'cause that's a
I hate
touchy
these
subject.
generation things.
I know
That's real, though.
But that's the thing is like Victoria, like she never heard the term. And so there was this whole process behind this conversation about like, I just don't get numbing out, like disengage. Like she come up with like a dozen other terms, which was, they all kind of fit. There were some that didn't, but it was just interesting, that whole thing, that it was just like, it's like a whole like, okay, boomer thing, because it's a phrase that,
Which I
she
am not
didn't
in the
use.
boomer generation.
No, you're
So-
not. And John hates too, which I think is hilarious. When you do that to John, that's a trigger for him.
Y'all should have mentioned comfortably numb and see if she.
I did, as a matter of fact. I mean, that's like a cool song, but it's not one that Victoria was going to ever hear. I was shocked. Neil, I didn't understand that at all. I thought that is a very clear clinical term that it evidently is totally outdated, Adam. They don't know comfortably numb.
Well, they always change terms anyway.
The kids,
It's annoying.
It
No, I
really
meant
is
like
annoying.
the clinical stuff.
Yeah.
Why
Well,
they
we just
got-
talked about alcohol use disorder. Yeah.
Yeah, and then manic depressive. They don't want to use that term anymore.
That's another one. I'm
I'm
impressed.
sure all of them are like they've all got changed. I think it's kind of like software.
Software.
Yeah,
Let me-
I think
let me
about
hear this.
but-
How's this
okay,
work?
so you got software works just fine. Then they do the new version, and then you start using the new version of software, and you're like, okay, it appears to be doing the exact same thing the old one does, but they move all the icons and call them something else. But I don't see any improvement. It does the exact same thing.
I love this. I think you're on point. Why do we have to change the programs, Neil? You're an IT guy. Why do we have to do this?
Because there's someone who
Change something somewhere else.
pretty much, because someone heavily opinionated who pays more money doesn't like the previous way, so they put enough money into it to then update it, and then they think it fixes it, and then when you change one thing for that client, that breaks it for another one, so then they have to make more changes.
All right, let's be real. What really happens is, okay, we already sold our other product. We have to make another one.
Another version.
Move some icons around and call it something
And then
else.
if we break something, then
Version
that justifies our support.
4.7.
Yes.
And if we break it, then that justifies our support contracts we have with the people.
And they
So-
always break it because every time there's something comes out new, nothing ever works.
No, because you probably have something custom in your system, and then your network's different than this other person's network, which causes
Yeah,
all
we're
these
having
things.
problems with 11 right now.
With episode 11 or
Windows 11.
Windows 11.
Windows
It
11.
doesn't work with some of our engineering.
for
Oh,
real?
and you guys
Yeah.
are the worst. You engineers with the CAD programs and the CNCs and like, there's a legit.
Yeah.
You'll have machines that still run on like Windows XP or Windows 2000, like because it works and they don't want to update the code, or that company went away, got bought by like engineers, and those are by far the worst when it comes
Yes,
to updating.
so I'm an engineer, so my newest laptop, they had to put on Windows 10, even though Windows 11 is the new thing. Now they're like, can't put you on Windows 11 yet because we have this, and this, and this that we don't know how to make it work yet.
Yep. They don't know how the DLL.
See, this is why I have emotional issues and I get tormented when things change. I don't like change. Let's just leave stuff the same.
I
Yeah.
think you should numb
Good.
out.
Why fix it when it's not?
Yeah, just leave it called manic depressive. Why change the name?
I I actually don't have that much of a problem with that. Although that one, I don't like that term quite so much. The 3 questions to dangers of numbing out survivor mode are: in what ways do I tend to numb my emotions rather than face them? Victoria loves the word numb now, I hope. How, number 2, do I differentiate between healthy coping and emotional avoidance? And lastly, what small steps can I take to reconnect with my emotions in a safe way? You know, this is a really hard thing to do. It is, as much as you might think, I don't know what, I'm numbing out. Like, you know, people make the joke like, I don't have emotions. I don't have feelings, whatever. I don't care. I got to call complete and utter bullshit, because 100% of the time, whether you're awake or sleeping, you will be having emotional experience. That's what dreams are. You're working out your emotions. So you do have feelings, you do have emotions, you have them actually all the time. There isn't a time that you don't. But Adam, we spend so much time trying to like suppress, repress, compartmentalize, like forget what it is that we know. People can live a lifetime that way.
Is that when I can't find my keys?
It might be subliminally why you can't find your car keys. You have some sort of resentment towards that vehicle.
Maybe I'm ready to get rid of that truck.
It might be time.
I may have left this part out, but it's the second time I've lost the keys in 2 weeks.
Oh, you did leave that part out in 2 weeks?
In 2
Where'd
weeks.
you lose it the first time?
Dude.
I had put it in a bag, a travel bag, and I put it in. Why I put it in that spot, I don't know. And yes, I already looked there.
Okay.
Neil seems very, very intrigued at like, where could these keys
It's a
be?
challenge. I want to like find
If
it.
and when I find them, I'm like, I found them. But you know, I'm gonna text y'all and let you know.
But back to the thing, like, honestly, you know, I have people in my sessions, like, you know, someone towards the end of the day, even just today, is this struggle, like, to really acknowledge that I have this emotional experience going on, because she talked so eloquently about, like, look, I've spent, you know, 45 years just not you think not knowing what I feel, but it's really just not paying attention, not allowing a focus on that. And it's like you do that for any length of time, stuff just totally builds up, and when it builds up and it's internalized, it's an ugly picture.
Here's an interesting that was kind of outside of this, that when we were talking to John, when we talked about processing stuff, right? And he talks about like when you go through trauma, you need to process it because it moves it out of the limbic part and puts it into like the long-term piece of your brain, right?
Right.
So it's almost like instead of people that are having these issues, instead of actually taking the time to properly process it and put it into the long-term storage, they just basically kind of put it into that junk drawer. Or you see those people who clean their room and then you have the closet that's busting at the seams because they didn't actually organize. Like, yeah, it looks great. Because we'll watch animes and they'll do that. Like this character is a notorious like dirty person. Like they hoard, they have everything, and they walk in, the room's clean.
You're making me think of my buddy Adrian. I
then,
love you,
and
Adrian,
then
but
behind
dude, you
them,
know.
the closet door's like pulsing because it's so full of crap, right?
Right.
It's that same idea. Numbing out's the same way. You have the surface level of a clean room, but you have this chaos that's about to burst because you didn't actually take the time to properly process and organize and put those things away in your long-term memory, right? So it's that way that you can think you're living your life normal by ignoring the whole situation that's out there. And that's how you've done it, right? You just keep throwing it into a drawer, you keep putting it into a cabinet, you keep putting it into your closet, right?
Gets pretty nasty.
And it just builds up. So it doesn't
Get a
mean
bigger closet.
You can get a bigger closet. You could also use alcohol to condense things and make it into a smaller space, but those strategies have an end. And you know what the end is? Probably an inpatient hospitalization for mental health stay. Yeah. Get a
Or
bigger
just
closet.
start forgetting where everything is, and then you don't remember what you're mad about.
Well, if you get to the point of stage of life where
Like
you have
losing keys and
dementia,
everything.
yeah, you start losing your keys. Yikes. No, Neil, I think you're absolutely on point with the process. You know, it does build up, and I mean, the classic example is the bottleneck. You know, where you just shake the bottle and it, you know, and stuff in the bottle, and when it comes out, it just explodes out.
right. And I think the hardest part, because when we talk about it's about the survivor mode, right? Because sometimes you have it to where, in the same analogy, what if it's your room but people are putting their crap in it?
Ooh.
That's a whole nother thing.
You know,
because
big time.
because
And-
you're thinking about survivor mode. You're just taking like, oh look, so and so just dumped something in. Let me just throw it in the closet
Oh,
because I
that-
don't want to deal with it, right?
okay.
That's anger that comes out. When
Adam's getting pissed off.
yeah, that. Oh, I hate
Adam's getting
that.
upset.
I hate that.
He got upset last time we were talking about parenting with his kids, and now he's getting upset
Yeah,
about
and I-
what I don't know.
I gotta tell you, I zoned out on that because I kept on thinking about stuff my kids had done. I'm like,
It really did bother you, didn't it?
Sounds
It
like you numbed
did.
out
Yeah,
during
yeah.
that
I
conversation.
did. Y'all were talking. I was thinking, oh God, man, she pissed me off when she did that. Chris, they were talking. I didn't hear a word that he said. So,
And now it's happening again
Yeah.
because other people are putting stuff in your closets.
yep.
No, in his room. And
Oh,
then he
just in the room.
shoves it into the closet because he doesn't want to deal with it.
Gotcha. You know, in a way, Neil, that is kind of a thing. I really haven't thought about it that way, but when you think about codependent people, they really do take on a lot of the energy of the people they're codependent with, and store their crap in their compartments. They're taking on all of that energy. You might say, people say, hey, I'm an empath, but there's destructive things that kind of go into that. And then also when you're not a willing partner, but another way that happens, like if you're Neil projecting onto me, meaning you have stuff from daddy issues or whatever, and you see me as, having those issues, it's that I don't really, it's just coming from your dad. That's the most basic I can describe projection. You're putting that on me, which then I have to deal with if we're really close to each other in some like closer relationship, like especially marriage.
Well, I mean, think
Ugh.
about it. So
It's a lot.
You have all this baggage. You've cleaned your room, right? You put in this closet that's about to bust. You get this other person in there, and you start talking about something. So they have you go where you start going to the closet to pull something out.
Pull some of the baggage out.
And what happens when you open that door? Because they've said something or you've started something. What happens when you pull that bottom thing out or you open that door that's pulsing? All that crap comes out on top of them. That's that trigger, right? You have all this stuff in there, and when that person comes along and they try to get that one piece out, either one, you can't find it because there's all this other crap on top of it.
Yeah, they say, like, don't bleed out on your friends or your family or your supports because your emotion will bleed out.
Right.
And that Casey used to say that a lot. And that is really true. I mean, that's why you want to really deal with your own crap so that when you're interacting, you're not throwing your emotional hurt all over the other person that you're, engaging with. It can get pretty messy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can
100%.
get pretty messy. So in the book, Through a Therapist's Eyes, Re-Understanding Your Emotions and Becoming Your Best Self, I like that. We didn't talk about this a whole lot in the show this week, but when you look at the dangers of numbing out and what we're talking about with how we engage that way, think about this, right? So I took all of the chapters in that book and I whittled it down and put it into as few categories as I could, and it came up with 4. And these 4 areas I think are pretty kind of profound realities about, these are foundational things that we want to do to be, to have a bit of emotional wellness. Adam, are you interested in what the 4 were? Say yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. They were. So again, the chapters are all real therapy moments that were phrases and statements that I made and wrote down and then wrote about. So it's like years and years of doing therapy condensed down into these chapter moments, condensed again down into these 4 sections. Like that's what this is. So that's why I know I created it, but I think it's pretty cool. Value self was one of them. Not in any order either. Focus points. Third is action points. And then the 4th is stop and reflect on emotions. Right?
Say the 4 again.
So action points, focus points, valuing yourself, and then stopping to reflect on emotion or emotional experience. Like those are 4 areas.
It's PDCA.
PDCA?
Mm-hmm. Plan, do, check, act.
What is that? What are you saying?
You plan something, you plan, you do, you check, you act. You check, make sure it's right, you make adjustments.
That's where you got out of value, focus, action, and stop
Yeah.
to reflect?
Reflect. That's when you check it. Actions when you do, you make, never mind.
Where did you come up with an acronym? The PD?
That's a lean manufacturing terminology.
Oh, for real? This
Yeah.
is the engineering.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's plan, do, check, act. That's what I hear.
Plan, do, check, act is an engineering kind of thing.
Yes, it's a circle.
And it relates. Yeah.
You always.
I think that fits.
You plan something, you do something, you check, make sure it's right, you act, and okay, and then it just is never ending cycle.
That's fascinating. I want to have a longer conversation with you about that.
Maybe you should pass on into more of your teammates. Just saying.
Yeah, and sell the book. Tell them this is this cool book where you can learn PDA, whatever.
PDA, that's the wrong kind of book.
Yeah, I don't know. But that particular one, stop and reflect on emotional experience, to me is the antithesis of suppress your emotion. Don't think about it. Don't have any vulnerability to show it. Just don't. It's that important because it's so fundamental. It's so fundamental. If you let things just build up and never deal with them, they'll end in a divorce. They'll end in a violent act. It'll come out in some really unnice way. Buying stuff you can't afford. Alcohol troubles, health issues. It is a lot. Shall we transition to the last one? We talked about gracious acceptance. What a weird word combo. What do you just hear with the word combo, Adam? Gracious acceptance.
Gracious acceptance. Well, I can imagine acceptance would be accepting whatever the condition is, but the gracious acceptance, I don't know. What are you trying to talk about?
It's a weird combo, isn't it?
Yeah.
What do you remember from that, Neil? John and I talked about gracious acceptance, with the three questions being, how do I respond to situations that require me to accept something I don't agree with or can't control? 2, what does gracious acceptance look like in relationships with others? And 3, how can I practice acceptance without feeling like I'm giving up or compromising my values? So John and I talked about, the serenity prayer and accepting things we cannot change, that sort of thing. Does that give you for refreshers?
No, my stepmom, her mom was a kindergarten teacher, and they talked about you need to be gracious to people that are like at your house and stuff. And
yeah,
of course, John comes across it from the seminary perspective and stuff like that. But like,
yes, the salt of the earth guy.
Her idea was, example of being gracious is being nice or cordial to people, even if you don't want them there.
Okay.
It was a really weird way to put it, but it was just that standard, right? And
that was the smirk you had on your face.
Yeah, that's because that's what I always think about when they were doing gracious acceptance, and I'm thinking about what this is about. It's the same idea, being nice or cordial to people, even though you don't want to accept what's going on, right? It's that same kind of idea through this process. Because when you talk about gracious acceptance, it's this person's making poor life choices, and you're trying to help them, but you can only do so much in the process, right? It's still their choices, their decisions. And it's still one of those things you have to, figure out what that balance is about. How far do you get involved? How far do you and then how do you it's such a messy.
It is very messy, and you're right. I didn't. That's cool. I think you're right on point with the way you said grandma. Right? You used to think about it.
Yeah.
Because this month was a little bit of a substance abuse theme, kind of, but not totally. With the survivor mode, as it definitely originated in substance abuse world. Alcohol use disorder did as well. And this gracious acceptance thing, it was the genesis of this month's shows, because there was a provocative thought that actually came across my mind that I've dealt with in therapy, just accepting a person in our life that's struggling with addiction. Like, they're sober, they're not sober, they're destroying our lives, they're driving the kids around drunk, like that's not okay, like what are we doing, how do we cope, should I just kick them to the curb, like how do you deal with this? And then the same thing with your child. It's one of the most it's one of the most gut-wrenching and tormenting things that I deal with in therapy, honestly, is a parent to a child that is acting with alcohol, drug addictions. I mean, people would just say, well, you have to kick them out. And a parent is looking at that like, how do I kick my child out to the street? It's such a gut-wrenching reality to try to traverse. And so that graciously accepting, do we accept or do we not accept? Do we confront? How do you manage it is sort of the genesis of all that in my mind. It's hard.
I mean, Adam, do you graciously accept everything your children do on a regular basis?
You're going to piss them off again.
I know, I'm trying to.
No.
And I think that's really the weird balance, right? When you deal with the adults.
But do you accept your kid?
Of course.
Yeah. So you have to graciously accept them when they've done things wrong.
So
You got to see on the YouTube, the facial expressions just went all over the place.
So you're saying I have to be nice when they do something wrong?
I didn't say nice, and that's an interesting
See, I'm going
word.
by his analogy.
You could
Well,
use
yeah.
cordial.
The grandma, yeah.
Do I have to be
I
cordial
mean,
to my kids when they do something wrong?
No. But you have to make decisions about when they can be there and when they can't be there, and it's such a dramatic thing, such as addiction, and that's the rough thing. And honestly, the way that I've landed, guys listening, if you are in this situation, it really is. It's one of the most difficult things to deal with. And my landing spot is that it is reasonable to unconditionally and always provide for your child. Yes, the 45-year-old creepy guy still living with his parents. It is reasonable to provide only shelter and food for survival for your child.
But what happens?
Or also, let me finish because it's very important that I say the other side of that equation is it's also reasonably to not provide those things, and there isn't any right or wrong on either side of that. That's the main point.
Yeah, I'm triggered right now because I talked to you last time about. Well, we're dealing with some stuff right now with some other things, but the question is, where does the line draw? Like I said, obviously the parent wants their kid to not have to do things. They want to help their kid live, right?
Yeah, like literally live.
But then what happens when the parent goes away and now it's other people's responsibility in the family? How does that fit into the equation when the parent's like, I really want you still to take care of this person, but they're not your child? How do you get to that point when you have someone who's not really a part of it anymore?
Meaning, I'm not your dad, but your dad is close to me, and I'm supporting you from your dad's wish, right? And it's a really interesting question, and you know what, we do see that a lot of times. We with grandparents are taking care of raising the kids way too often, and but it's an interesting point, Neil, and I think honestly the way that I would land on it is the same. It is reasonable to follow through with providing just those two things if you're that committed to supporting their parent and their wishes for their kid. But it's also reasonable to say no.
I think the other thing to think about too is where does it put you in the risk factor too, right?
Oh, big time.
If it comes down to it,
that's the thing,
right? That's the question. Right? When it comes down to if you're supporting someone and if you hurt yourself to help this other person when they're not going to help themselves, to me, that's when it's reasonable to say no, I can't.
Yeah, well, that's a problem. And understand also when we say only shelter for the purpose of survival coupled with food, we're not talking about preferential food. We're not saying, hey, I know that you like pasta, so we're going to make sure we get pasta.
I like pasta.
This is like, I don't care if you give them like straight oatmeal mush and that's all they get. And they can stay with, you in the outbuilding, I literally have somebody that is allowing them to stay on their property in a tent. Their child has been remanded to, the tent on their property farther out from the house. And it's because of this issue. It's because, you cannot continue to behave the way that you're behaving. So, but that's really, really hard because when your kid is there, you're giving them $5 for cigarettes. You're giving them gas money. You're paying for this and that.
Then they start taking advantage of it by being like, well, I don't really like oatmeal. Can I get some? Right. Can I get pasta?
Right.
Well, hey, now can I get a steak?
Mess.
Hey, can we go get and that's the
Can
part
we go get bourbon? Is that what he said?
Barbecue. I was sticking with the food. But that means, Adam, if you really need to, you can kick your daughter out and put her in a tent in the backyard and perfectly fine.
Yeah,
so
by the
if she doesn't
tree.
clean her room, just
by
so
the
you know.
by the pecan tree. Or what do you have? Walnuts.
It's
You have walnuts.
pecans.
Pecans. Yeah. Put her in the pecan tree. Put her in a tree house. She can go.
And I think the key you do have to look at it is it goes back to looking at what you can control, what you can't control. Once your child becomes of age, or your spouse is an adult, right? You have to figure out what that balance is to where they want to help themselves and how much you can help them through that thing, right? You just talked about the Serenity Prayer.
Yeah, I talk about the Serenity Prayer all the time. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And if you're not really into religion, that's fine. It can be very secular because those three lines derive like absolute brilliance with the wisdom to know the difference between the two. It's I talk about it in therapy like all the time, not in a religious way, but just in a this is what you can control, this is what you can't control. I mean, you know, you want to go mad, try to control stuff you can't control. Do I have another bit of time? I'm not sure in the exact time to go through chapter 11 thing.
You have a few minutes.
We have a few minutes.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're at 57.
Okay, awesome. Because I started late. So one of the things that I thought was interesting too about this show that we did, I was able to throw chapter 11 from Adam. What was the book name? Through a Therapist's Eyes. You get tested.
On the new book?
The old one.
Rediscovering.
Re-understanding.
Re-understanding. Thank you.
Yeah,
Neil.
I was
Hey, Chris, what's the name of your book?
I do that all the
So
time.
re-understanding and becoming your best self or something like that.
Re-understanding emotions and becoming your best self.
Yeah,
Thanks for
see,
trying.
I was
to play
close.
it. You were
You
very
were closer than he was.
I know, right? Well, the second one was the same. It was good for volume 2. Anyway, chapter 11 is the title is Accepting Things as Part of Your Emotional Growth. Do accept limitations, events, and characteristics. Don't resist and fight against what is true. That's one of the real therapy moments that I had. Actually, I'm misspeaking right now because I recently read this in session to somebody, and they were really appreciative of that. And that is Lisa's phrase, actually. So that wasn't even mine. Hers, I got to give her full credit. Accepting things as part of your emotional growth. But it's funny because it goes along with this topic of gracious acceptance when you fight against things that you can't control, and it just makes you miserable and behave poorly. And Adam, I have a wonderful example of this that I shared in chapter 11 of Through a Therapist's Eyes. Interested in the story?
Yes, please.
Yes, thank you. Done that twice now. You're doing so well. So long ago when I was a teenager, Adam, you don't know this story. I haven't really talked about it with you, I don't think. Oh, well, neither of you for that matter. I lived in West Virginia, and this was a particular snowy night. I didn't even put that in the book when I wrote about this example. But it was one of these girls, Angie. I mean, everyone had a crush on Angie. She was like cute as hell and whatever. So I took her out on sort of like a date, right? I even found a necklace on the ground that evening at the place that I worked. It was called Wilson's Lodge. It was like a resort restaurant slash hotel resort stay. And so we're just hanging out that whole evening. And, I got, you guys have both received, I'm sure before, I got the friendship speech. Have you got the friendship speech, Adam?
Not really.
What? You are so full of shit right now.
I mean, look at him. Come on. You think he'd get the friendship speech?
I am looking at him, Neil, and I'm dang sure he's gotten the friendship speech before. In fact, probably repressing the experiences that he had this
That
week.
must be what it is.
He's
I
numbing
think you're
out.
suppressing
He's numbed
that.
out.
I'm numb. Yeah.
Yeah, you are numbed out. You know, the friendship speech. You're interested in a girl, you want to hook up with her and talk to her or whatever, and she just says, "Oh, we're good friends," whatever. So I drove her home, and on the way home, man, I was not in a right mind. I wasn't in a great way. I was pissed off. I was like so frustrated, like just crushed. I mean, that's why they call it a crush, right? So I took a turn going down this road and, spun, overcorrected, fishtailed back down into a steep curve. And it was just like, I don't know. I could have died that night. It was just so bad because I wasn't paying attention to the road. I wasn't paying attention to driving, and the roads were ridiculous. Anyway, I really needed to be careful.
You're thinking about what she'd said earlier.
Oh, I was totally replaying the night. Like, not accepting that this was like, I don't get the girl. Don't get the girl this time. And I was fighting that. So that's a simple little example of how when you're fighting something, you're not accepting something, you're not going to be in the right mind. You're not going to be doing what you need to be doing, and you might have a car wreck as a result, at least in my circumstance.
So sometimes metaphorically, sometimes literally.
Sometimes literally, yes. All right, I think that kind of covers the 3 shows that we did in March. Closing thoughts, comments, what did we miss, Neil? We doing a good job characterizing what we talked about? I guess it was Neil John and I alone twice. We got to get on to Victoria about that.
Yeah, part of it was my fault because of my schedule.
Oh, that's right.
I had
You
to.
were
I had
guilty.
something on Thursday that.
You were guilty.
And
of
so,
that.
oh, Adam, I need to show you how to be the producer. So if I ever have to not be here, they don't have to reschedule. So just keep that in mind.
They had to reschedule because you couldn't be here.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had to get computer stuff organized.
So
They
So
just wanted
that's-
you here so much. That's what it was.
yeah, no.
I mean,
But no, I like this month. I love the fact that you're changing this to where you kind of have these 3 episodes that cover different
Sort of
topics.
together.
So I've really been enjoying that the last few months, and I think you hit a lot of the different things with the survivor mode, the numbing out, the gracious acceptance for when you're on the other side. Like I thought these shows were really really good. I'm with you. The alcohol use disorder is kind of
terrible.
I don't know. Makes it harder to diagnose, harder to really help someone. Maybe not even diagnose, but harder to help someone when we
Makes
when
it
you-
easier to diagnose because you can diagnose anybody with alcohol use
Exactly.
disorder that uses alcohol stupidly.
Hurt foot disorder is what we'll start
Hurt
calling it.
foot.
Hurt foot disorder. Anybody
no,
who's had
it's
foot
good.
pain, yeah, it's frustrating.
Exactly. So yeah, I think it was good. I like the shows.
HFD.
Yeah, HFD,
You have HFD? That sounds like a sexually transmitted disease, Adam. I don't know.
PDCA.
Or just
You
PDA.
get your HFD with your PDCA.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for that, Neil. I appreciate you being here. Adam Cloninger, anything to say as we get out of here? Yeah, appreciate you coming out and hanging out. Guys, we are going in some different directions next week. I think I kind of designed, well, I'm just going to leave it as a mystery because there's some things I need to work out, but hopefully one of them will be talking about psychotropic medications. That'll be an interesting gig. But stay well, stay tuned, and we will see